got 10 minutes. Vámonos.
Ven, ven, ven.
The film opens in Colombia in 1992, set against the backdrop of a secluded countryside villa nestled deep within the lush tropical forests. Here, two longtime associates in the criminal underworld, Fabio and Don Luis, enjoy drinks while negotiating a deal. Fabio discreetly hands Don Luis a hard drive containing sensitive information. After exchanging cordial farewells, he departs, but once Fabio's figure fades from view, Don Luis coldly instructs his right-hand man, Mark, to eliminate him. Fabio's faint smile vanishes as he senses the imminent danger. He realizes he must act quickly. He instructs his driver to take him home without delay. Upon arrival, he urges his wife and daughter, Catalea, to pack their belongings within a mere 10 minutes. Foreseeing the worst, Fabio wisely gives Catalea a memory card and a business card bearing an address for her to seek refuge. He adorns her with a farewell gift, a pendant shaped like the orchid that inspired her name. However, despite their hurried preparations, the family is unable to escape as Don Luis's henchmen swiftly surround their home. Following their boss's orders, they first eliminate Fabio's bodyguards before storming into the apartment. In a tragic turn of events, Catalea witnesses the brutal murders of her mother and father. Paralyzed by shock, she remains seated at the table when the assailants enter. Mark approaches her at the negotiation table, attempting to display kindness and offering anything she desires in exchange for the flash drive that belonged to her father. But the only desire that burns within Catalea is vengeance against Don Luis. Seizing an opportunity, she bolts from the scene, evading her pursuers by leaping across rooftops and skillfully navigating through obstacles, ascending and descending staircases with agility that keeps them at bay. After a brief respite in hiding, Catalea believes she has eluded capture, only to find herself cornered on the street by a gang of cars. Desperately seeking refuge, she plunges into a sewer, using it as a passage to the city center. Guided by the address on her note, she arrives at her destination, the U.S. Embassy, where she presents the secret flash drive, explaining that it was sent by her late father. The agency orchestrates a covert flight to Miami, providing Catalea with the perfect opportunity to slip away from surveillance and board a bus bound for Chicago. There, she enlists the aid of local street gangs to locate her uncle Emilio. In her new city, Catalea begins to forge a fresh start, sharing a family breakfast at Emilio's home. With fervor, she expresses her ambition to become a queen of wars or a killer, seeking his guidance in her pursuit. Emilio, promising to support her aspirations, takes her to school. Despite the academic year being in full swing, the principal reluctantly admits Catalea after receiving a hefty bribe, though this arrangement does little to satisfy her. Emilio patiently explains to his niece that wielding a gun is merely one facet of the life she desires. To truly excel as a professional killer, she must grasp the intricacies of the world around her. Fast forward 15 years to California, where two police officers are leisurely enjoying burgers in their patrol car when a red vehicle careens into them at high speed. A disoriented girl, reeking of alcohol and surrounded by empty bottles, stumbles out of the wreck. The officers promptly handcuff her. She wears an orchid pendant around her neck as they transport her to the station. Feeling unwell at the officer's desk, she is sent to a holding cell for the night. That same evening, Marshal Warren arrives at the station, leading a convoy transporting notorious criminal Gennaro Rizzo, who requires overnight processing. After Rizzo is secured in his cell with a night guard posted outside, the officer on duty in the women's section turns off the lights after leaving a cup of coffee for the morning. Suddenly, Catalea rises from her bed. Using a hairpin, she deftly unlocks her cell door and, seizing the coffee spoon, slips into the corridor. Grabbing a glass of water from the cooler, she stealthily makes her way to the electrical room. There, she constructs a makeshift device and places it in the ventilation panel before hiding within the air duct. As she reaches the fan, she waits patiently for her plan to unfold. When her device successfully shuts down the system, she deftly navigates through the metal blades and enters the men's restroom just as the night guard arrives. Using the guard as a diversion, Catalea approaches Gennaro Rizzo's cell and executes her meticulously crafted plan without hesitation. The sound of gunfire reverberates through the station, prompting immediate chaos as sirens wail. Marshal Warren arrives at the scene to find the guard brandishing a weapon and Gennaro Rizzo lifeless in his cell, marked by the chilling signature of a serial killer. As the police initiate a perimeter search, the skilled young woman deftly slips back into the air duct, evading detection and returning to her cell just as the marshal and officer arrive, finding her exactly as they had left her. The following day, an FBI delegation led by Agent Ross arrives in California to investigate the murder, heading straight to the morgue. There, on the victim's abdomen, Ross identifies a drawing that the serial killer has been leaving on his victims for the past 4 years. Meanwhile, Cattleya, having submitted her fingerprints, exits the police station with ease, brushing past Marshal Warren and Agent Ross, who are surrounded by a throng of reporters. As she departs, she discreetly removes the artificial skin that had concealed her true fingerprints. In Rizzo's cell, Agent Ross meticulously attempts to reconstruct the sequence of events surrounding the murder, requesting access to surveillance footage and files on everyone present at the station. Having accomplished her mission, Cattleya calls her uncle Emilio, assuring him that she will return to Chicago in 2 days. Embracing her identity as a killer, exactly as she had always envisioned, she relies on Emilio to secure contracts for her. Meanwhile, Agent Ross and his investigative team decide to release information to the media about the 22 murders linked by the same signature, suspecting that the killer is trying to communicate a message. At Don Luis's villa in New Orleans, a CIA operative named Mr. Richard arrives, having been prompted by the media coverage. He expresses his belief that the floral motif is aimed at Luis and is somehow tied to his former partner, Fabio. Richard pressures Luis to track down the killer, reminding him of a favor the CIA did for him years ago in Colombia. While concealing his knowledge from Richard, Don Luis realizes that Cattleya is behind these events. Cattleya returns to her city apartment, where she reviews surveillance footage and cleans herself up after the crime, meticulously tending to her weapons. Meanwhile, Agent Ross briefs his team on the findings from the surveillance footage, concluding that the suspect was indeed inside the station during the murder. He instructs his subordinates to investigate each inmate's case thoroughly, confident that one of them must be the killer. Elsewhere, free-spirited artist Danny returns home only to find his apartment door broken open, anxiety gnawing at him as he steps into an unsettling silence. Danny steps cautiously into his apartment, the air thick with tension, when a commanding voice suddenly cuts through the silence. "Don't move." It's the unmistakable voice of his elusive lover. In an instant, she joyfully leaps into his arms, and they share a night filled with passion and warmth. But as dawn breaks, she quietly slips away once more, leaving him in a haze of longing. Meanwhile, Emilio arrives at the laundromat, a discreet meeting point for him and Cattleya. Aware of the dangers surrounding her life, she wisely avoids visiting her relatives to keep them safe from potential threats. Emilio presents her with a new assignment. Their next target is hiding in the Caribbean. He also warns her about the perils of torturing Don Luis, labeling it a reckless and dangerous endeavor. Yet, Cattleya's resolve remains unshaken. She refuses to back down. In his office, Agent Ross examines the cryptic drawing left by the killer, seeking to unravel its meaning. An attentive colleague assists him in deciphering the riddle, revealing that it depicts an orchid native to Colombia. Determined to pursue this lead, Ross attempts to access the CIA database for further information but finds himself denied entry to the classified code word. Meanwhile, Cattleya arrives home to tend to her fighting dogs, feeding them raw meat as they respond flawlessly to her command, "Eat." In a luxurious villa under the sweltering Mexican sun, a corpulent man indulges himself with women by a shark-infested pool during the day. At night, he retreats to his bedroom, instructing his bodyguard to bolster security by locking all doors. However, Cattleya skillfully infiltrates the premises, waking Willie in the dead of night and luring him away from the safety of his bedroom. Drawn by a discarded orchid flower, the armed man cautiously approaches the indoor pool, only to find himself ensnared by Cattleya. With precision and resolve, she shoots him, sending his lifeless body into the jaws of hungry sharks. In Chicago, Marco, a subordinate of Don Luis, arrives with a deadly mission. Under orders from his boss, he is tasked with eliminating Cattleya and plans to hunt down her family first. After her harrowing mission in Mexico, Cattleya surprises Danny with a romantic evening filled with wine and dinner, once again throwing herself into his embrace. But this time, Danny hesitates. He realizes he knows almost nothing about her. With genuine concern etched across his face, he gently presses her for answers about her past, where she comes from, who her family is, and even what she enjoys for breakfast, yearning for a deeper connection. The girl skillfully dodges his probing questions once again, yet she concedes to stay with him in the morning, responding to his heartfelt request. Rising before her, Danny prepares a warm breakfast, captivated by her serene beauty as she sleeps, and he captures a fleeting moment by taking a photo of her on his phone. Meanwhile, Cattleya rushes to meet Emilio for a new assignment, but when they meet, he is consumed by anger. He reveals the grim news of 8 murders in Miami, one victim being his close friend. Emilio believes this brutal act is a deliberate message from Don Luis and implores Cattleya to reconsider her path. Yet, driven by an insatiable thirst for vengeance, she remains resolute, forcing Emilio to make a painful decision. He must sever their professional ties. He tells her that he can no longer provide her with assignments, expressing his belief that she deserves a life far removed from the violence that has plagued their family. At a nearby cafe, Danny animatedly shares stories about his girlfriend with his best friend Ryan, proudly showing off the only photo he has of her on his phone. However, their conversation takes an abrupt turn when Danny notices a police officer preparing to issue him a ticket outside. In a panic, he rushes out, inadvertently leaving his phone behind. Ryan quickly seizes the opportunity and calls their mutual friend Sherry at the police station. With good intentions, he aims to help Danny uncover more about the mysterious girl and sends Sherry the photo for her to upload into the police database for further investigation. Agent Ross receives the information almost instantly, as he is already running a search for Cataleya's photo at the station. By tracing the call, he uncovers an address in Chicago and promptly dispatches a squad to investigate. After her heated exchange with Emilio, Cataleya finds herself at a church service, seeking solace with her mother. Meanwhile, Marco shadows her relatives and uncovers their address. Back at the police station, Agent Ross confirms the criminal's identity and orders the SWAT team to prepare for an imminent raid. At that moment, Cataleya sits alone at home, yearning for her lover, and decides to reach out to him. The call is swiftly traced by FBI agents, who pinpoint her location within 40 seconds. During their conversation, she learns that Danny had taken a candid photo of her while she slept. Instinctively sensing danger, Cataleya checks her surveillance cameras and spots a SWAT van approaching ominously. Dropping her phone in alarm, she springs into action, executing her emergency escape plan. She slips into a neighbor's apartment where she has cleverly concealed her combat gear in a hidden compartment. As the SWAT team readies an explosive charge for her door, she mirrors their actions by placing explosives on the wall adjacent to the elevator shaft, preparing for a confrontation that could change everything. The explosion violently erupts, splintering the wall and granting Cataleya her chance to flee just as the FBI agent begins to search her now deserted apartment. Navigating through the ventilation system, a route she has meticulously mastered, Cataleya emerges in the parking lot, but her escape does not go unnoticed. The agent quickly identifies the disabled surveillance camera. In a frantic rush, the SWAT team, led by Agent Ross, descends the stairs, yet Cataleya deftly eludes them, slipping into the building's basement and then into the subway system. Free from their grasp, she makes a beeline for Emilio, only to discover that Marco and his henchmen have already arrived, leaving a trail of bodies in their wake. Later that evening, Agent Ross returns home only to find himself ensnared in an ambush. Bound to a chair rigged with explosives by Cataleya, he is coerced into aiding her quest for revenge against Don Luis. The following morning, Ross visits the CIA to brief Mr. Richard on the chaotic events of the previous day. Unbeknownst to him, Richard is an ally of Don Luis and intentionally withholds vital information. However, when Cataleya calls and sends a chilling photo of Richard with a bullet aimed at his head, he realizes the gravity of the situation. Under duress, he reveals the location of the mafia boss. With determination coursing through her veins and armed to the teeth, Cataleya embarks on her mission of vengeance. While Marco is still strategizing his defense, she launches an assault on the opulent villa with a rocket launcher, tearing through its defenses. Marco hastily relocates Luis to a safe haven and gathers his armed thugs to confront this formidable threat. Yet, they prove no match for Cataleya's relentless fury as she systematically dismantles Luis' guards one by one, including Marco, his most trusted enforcer. As Marco fails to communicate with him, the cowardly Luis abandons his hiding place in a desperate bid for escape, leaping into the first van he spots. Little does he know that Cataleya's ferocious dogs are already waiting inside, poised to deliver the reckoning he so richly deserves. Thank you for watching. If you are new, don't forget to subscribe for more recaps. Until next time, have a nice day.